The crystalline chamber floated in the void between stars, massive and ancient. Inside, representatives from 847 species gathered in their designated sections. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some stood on legs, others floated in gravitational fields. The technology that allowed them all to exist in one space was older than most civilizations in the room. Hi. Arbiter Velinus rose from his seat at the center podium, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of authority. His chitinous face reflected the light from 1,000 viewing screens. He had served the council for 300 cycles. He had never seen a species refuse a council mandate. The human delegation will approach, Velinus announced. His voice carried through translation devices to every corner of the chamber. Ambassador walked alone down the long approach. His simple black suit stood in stark contrast to the elaborate robes and biological displays around him. He carried no weapons, no entourage, no display of power. Just a single human walking across polished crystal. Representative Morlax watched from his fluid tank. His slug-like body pulsed with excitement. His species had been waiting for this moment for 10 years. The humans controlled beautiful worlds, fresh and uncrowded. Soon, some of those worlds would be redistributed. Soon, his people would have room to expand. Dejin stopped at the designated position. He placed his hands behind his back and waited. Velinus activated the main display. Star charts appeared, showing human-controlled space. 200 systems glowed in blue. The Council has reviewed the current distribution of habitable worlds. We have determined that humanity controls a disproportionate number of systems relative to your population size. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Several species had made similar complaints over the years. The humans had expanded quickly, very quickly, in just 300 years since first contact. They had claimed systems that other species considered theirs by ancient right. The law is clear, Velinus continued. When one species controls resources beyond their need, while others suffer from overcrowding, redistribution is mandatory. This law has stood for 40,000 years. It has prevented countless wars. It has maintained peace across the galaxy. Dayon said nothing. His face remained calm. Therefore, Velinus raised one hand. The Council mandates that humanity will surrender 40 systems for redistribution. These systems will be allocated to species with demonstrated need. The transition will begin in 60 standard days. Your delegation will now remain to negotiate which specific systems will be transferred. The chamber erupted in sounds of approval. Clicking, whistling, humming in a dozen different forms. This was how things had always worked. The Council decided, species complied. Order was maintained. Dayon remained still for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice quiet but clear. No, the chamber fell silent. Translation devices checked themselves, wondering if they had malfunctioned. Surely the human had said something else. I do not understand, Velinus said slowly. Perhaps the translation was unclear. The Council has issued a mandate. This is not a request. This is galactic law. I understood perfectly, Dayon replied. My answer is no. Humanity will not surrender any systems. We will not negotiate terms. We will not comply with this mandate. Morlock surged against his tank. This is outrageous. The Council's authority is absolute. No species has ever refused. Then we are the first, Dayon said simply. Velinus felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Uncertainty. Ambassador, I do not think you comprehend the situation. Every species in this chamber is bound by Council law. There is no option to refuse. If you do not comply, the Council will enforce compliance. How? Dayon asked. The question hung in the air like a blade. The defense fleet, Velinus said, though his voice carried less confidence now. 5,000 warships representing 200 species. Surely humanity does not wish to face the combined might of the galactic community. Dayon smiled, but it was not a warm expression. I need to show you something. He activated his communication device. A hologram appeared beside him, flickering into sharp focus. It showed a woman in military uniform standing on what was clearly a starship bridge. Behind her, crew members worked at stations. Weapon systems glowed ready. "Hi, Arbiter," Dayon said. "This is Fleet Admiral Guan, commanding the human military forces." Guan's face was hard, marked by scars. Her eyes were the color of deep space. When she spoke, every word was precise. "I am currently aboard the dreadnought Indomitable. I command 30 war fleets. At this moment, those fleets are positioned at strategic jump points throughout the galaxy. We have been ready for this conversation for some time." The chamber descended into chaos. Representatives shouted questions. Others demanded explanations. Some simply stared in shock. "This is a threat." Morlax screamed. "The Council cannot tolerate such aggression." "It is not a threat," Guan said calmly. "It is information. You threaten to take our worlds by force. We are merely informing you that we are prepared to defend them." Velinus tried to regain control. "The Council has maintained peace for 40,000 years. Humanity has been part of the galactic community for only 300. You cannot simply ignore laws that have stood since before your species reached the stars." Dayan turned to face the High Arbiter directly. "We recognize no authority over sovereign human space, except humanity itself. You may have your laws. We have ours. And our first law is simple. What we build, what we settle, what we claim through our own labor belongs to us. Not to you. Not to anyone else. Us." "You speak of sovereignty," Velinus said, his composure cracking. "But sovereignty exists only within the framework of galactic law. Without that framework, there is only chaos." "Only war? Then perhaps your framework needs to change," Dayan replied. "We did not come here to conquer. We did not come here seeking conflict. We came here to live in peace, to trade, to explore, but we will not be bullied. We will not surrender what is ours because an ancient council decides it is convenient." Guan spoke again from the hologram. "I have transmitted defense protocols to all human systems. Every colony is ready. Every station is armed. Every citizen knows what to do if attacked. We prefer peace, High Arbiter, but we are very, very good at war." The hologram vanished. Dayon stood alone again, one human facing hundreds of alien species. But somehow, in that moment, he did not look small. "You have our answer," Dayon said. "We will not negotiate. We will not comply. If you choose to enforce your mandate through violence, you will find us ready. Choose wisely." Yeah. He turned and walked back down the long crystal approach. His footsteps echoed in the stunned silence. Not once did he look back. Velinus sat down slowly, his forearms trembling slightly. In 40,000 years of galactic law, no one had ever simply said no. The order he had always known suddenly felt fragile, and somewhere in the darkness between stars, 30 human fleets waited with weapons charged and crews ready. The galaxy had changed in the span of one conversation. The age of assumed compliance was over. Terror had not yet fully arrived in the council chambers. But it was coming. The council archives stretched beneath the crystalline chamber like roots beneath a tree. Millions of data storage units contained the history of galactic civilization, every war, every treaty, every species that had ever risen to the stars was recorded here. Velinus moved through the archives with 3 of his most trusted researchers. They had been searching for 6 hours. What they were finding made his blood run cold. "Show me the border conflict again," he commanded. The holographic display activated. Star charts appeared, showing the frontier region between human space and the Thalrex Empire. The Thalrex were warriors. They had conquered 40 systems over 2 centuries. Their military tradition stretched back thousands of years. They were not a species to trifle with. "The conflict began 15 years ago," the head researcher explained. She was a thin, crystalline being named Silvara. Her species had maintained the archives for 10,000 years. The Thalrex attacked a human mining colony in the Kepler 186 system. By their law, any undefended resource world could be claimed through combat. "Undefended," Velinus repeated. "Foolish. The humans would not leave valuable assets undefended." "The Thalrex made that assumption," Silvera continued. Records show they sent a raiding fleet of 30 warships, standard practice for them. They expected to overwhelm any light defense force and claim the mining operations. The display shifted. Battle recordings played out in silent detail. The Thalrex fleet approached the colony. Then something unexpected happened. 5 human destroyers appeared from behind the mining station. 5 ships against 30, Velinus muttered. The humans should have retreated. They did not retreat, Silvera said quietly. They attacked. The battle lasted 7 minutes. The human ships moved in patterns that seemed random but were clearly coordinated. Their weapons fired with precision that the Thalrex had never encountered. One by one, Thalrex warships were disabled or destroyed. By the end, 23 Thalrex ships were destroyed. 7 fled. All 5 human ships survived. Commander was Captain Minseo, Silvera noted. She is now an admiral in the human fleet, one of many promoted after the conflict. Velinus felt his mandibles click nervously. What happened next? The Thalrex Emperor declared full war. He considered the defense of the mining colony an insult. He sent the Grand Fleet 600 warships, the pride of their empire. The display changed again. More battle recordings. More impossible human victories. The Grand Fleet encountered human forces at 3 different systems. Each time the humans were outnumbered. Each time, they won. The humans used tactics we had never seen, Silvera explained. They would strike supply lines. They would appear where they should not be. They used weapons that were not in any database. Within 3 months, the Thalrex Empire had lost 60% of their military capacity. 3 months, Velinus whispered. How? The humans issued one demand, Silvera said. Complete withdrawal from all border systems or total annihilation of the Thalrex Empire. They did not negotiate. They did not offer terms. They simply stated what would happen if the Thalrex did not comply, and the Thalrex. They withdrew. The Emperor himself signed the treaty. The Thalrex have not approached human space since. They speak of the conflict in whispers. They call the humans the unkillable ones. Velinus moved to another data terminal. Show me their industrial capacity. Numbers flooded the screen. Silvera read them aloud. 200 systems. Estimated population of 600 billion. Manufacturing capacity exceeds any single council species by a factor of 12. They can build a warship in 6 standard days. A destroyer in 3. They have shipyards in 40 different systems. How did we not know this? Velinus demanded. I did not hide it, Silvera replied. We simply did not look. The humans were new. We assumed they were weak. We assumed they would follow the pattern of all new species. Cautious exploration. Slow growth. Respect for established power, another researcher spoke up. His name was Thorvan, a 6-legged being with compound eyes. Hi, Arbiter. I have found something else. Human military training protocols. The display changed to show what looked like a human educational facility. Young humans, barely past childhood, were training with weapons. They were learning tactics. They were studying war. All human children receive basic military training, Thorvan explained. It is part of their standard education. By the time they reach adulthood, every human knows how to fight. Not just soldiers. Every single one. Velinus felt something crack inside his certainty. What kind of species does this? A species that evolved as hunters, Silvera answered. I have reviewed their homeworld biology. Humans are persistence predators. On their planet, they were not the strongest or fastest, but they were the most determined. They would chase prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. That psychology has not left them. They do not give up, Thorvan added. We have accounts from human merchants, diplomats, scientists. There is a common theme. When a human commits to something, they see it through to the end, no matter the cost. Velinus looked at the data surrounding him. 15 years of information they had ignored. Warnings they had not heeded. What else are we missing? Silvera hesitated. Hi, Arbiter. There's one more thing. I have been analyzing the transmission from Fleet Admiral Juan, she said. 30 war fleets were positioned at strategic jump points, yes. A threat meant to intimidate us. I do not think it was a threat, Silvera said slowly. I think it was a fact. I have been monitoring subspace communications. There are anomalies at 37 different locations throughout the galaxy. Exactly the kind of anomalies that large fleet formations create. You were saying the humans actually have 30 fleets deployed? I am saying they have at least 30 fleets deployed. And based on their industrial capacity, they likely have more in reserve. The room fell silent. Velinus processed this information. The Council Defense Fleet had 5,000 ships. It sounded impressive. But those ships came from 200 different species, different technologies, different tactics, different chains of command. They had never fought together in a real war. The humans had fought a war against a warrior species, and they had won decisively in 3 months. What are human casualties like? Velinus asked, grasping for some weakness. Thorvin pulled up medical records. Lower than expected. Much lower. Human military doctrine emphasizes what they call overwhelming force. They do not believe in fair fights. They believe in using every advantage to minimize their own losses. They also have advanced medical technology. Soldiers who would die from wounds in other militaries survive in human care. They are efficient killers, Velinus said bitterly. No, Silvara corrected. They are efficient at war. There is a difference. Look at this. She showed recordings from after the Thalrex conflict. Human ships providing medical aid to wounded Thalrex. Human engineers helping repair damaged Thalrex stations. Human diplomats negotiating fair trade agreements. Once the war ended, the humans helped their former enemies rebuild. They established trade routes. They shared some technology. They did not conquer. They did not occupy. They simply enforced their boundary and then offered peace. Velinus asked. Why not press their advantage? Because they do not want an empire, Silvera said. They want to be left alone. Every action they have taken supports this. They settle systems no one else wants. They trade fairly. They avoid conflict. But when pushed, when threatened, they respond with total commitment. Velinus looked at the data one more time. Numbers that told a story he had refused to see. We made a terrible mistake, yes, Silvera agreed. We threatened a species that does not negotiate when their sovereignty is challenged. We backed them into a corner. And now we will see what a cornered predator does. The Council will vote to mobilize the defense fleet, Velinus said. Morlax and others like him will demand it. They will say we cannot appear weak. They will say the humans are bluffing. Are they bluffing? Thorvin asked. Velinus thought of Ambassador Dayun walking away without looking back. He thought of Fleet Admiral Giwan's scarred face and cold eyes. He thought of 30 fleets waiting in the darkness.
Now, he said finally.
They are not bluffing. And we are going to find out exactly what humanity is capable of when they stop being patient. In the archives around them, data hummed quietly. 40,000 years of galactic history. 40,000 years of species bowing to Council authority. That age was ending. The terror was spreading through the Council now. Not panic yet, but the slow, creeping realization that they had awakened something dangerous, something that did not fear their laws or their fleets. They had awakened humanity's will to remain free, and that will was backed by weapons, ships, and a determination that had hunted prey to exhaustion across an entire planet's evolution. The Council had made its choice. Now they would face the consequences. The Council chamber was louder than it had been in centuries. Representatives shouted over each other. Some demanded war. Others counseled caution. A few, the quieter ones, were already calculating how to distance themselves from what was coming. Morlax pulsed with rage in his fluid tank. We cannot show weakness. If we allow the humans to refuse, every species will think they can ignore Council authority. The entire system will collapse. The system is already collapsing, a quiet voice said. It belonged to Ambassador Kilvin, whose species had been part of the Council for 8,000 years. We built our authority on the assumption that no one would truly challenge us. The humans have challenged us. Now we must decide if we are willing to die to maintain our authority. Die? Morlax sputtered. We have 5,000 warships. The humans have, what, a few hundred? They are new to space. They cannot possibly stand against the combined might of the Council. Did you not read the reports? Kilvin asked calmly. The humans defeated the Thalrex Empire in 3 months. The Thalrex who conquered 40 systems. The Thalrex, who have been warriors for millennia. The Thalrex were overconfident, Morlax countered. We will not make the same mistakes. Velinus raised his hands for silence. The chamber gradually quieted. A vote must be held. Do we enforce our mandate through military action, or do we seek another solution? There is no other solution, Morlax insisted. The humans have refused. We must respond. A new voice spoke up. It belonged to Representative Thyra, whose species were traders and explorers. I have been reviewing economic data. Human trade has increased galactic prosperity by 14% since they joined our community. They buy our goods. They sell resources at fair prices. They have helped establish new trade routes. Do we really want to go to war with such valuable partners? This is not about economics, Morlax snapped. This is about law, about order, about the Council's right to govern. No, Kilvin said sharply. This is about whether we are willing to send millions of our people to die to force a relocation of some systems. That is what this truly is. And I ask everyone here, are those systems worth the cost? The chamber erupted again. Velinus could see the Council fragmenting before his eyes. Some species supported war out of pride. Others opposed it out of fear or pragmatism. A few were silent, waiting to see which way the wind would blow. Enough, Velinus commanded. We will vote. All in favor of mobilizing the defense fleet to enforce compliance. Signal now.
Ow.
Lights appeared across the chamber. Velinus counted. 312 species voted in favor. It was a majority, but barely. All opposed? More lights. 271 species. The remainder abstained. The motion passes, Velinus announced, though his voice held no triumph. The defense fleet will mobilize. War Master Threxus will command the operation. A massive hologram appeared. War Master Threxus was a being of living stone, over 3 meters tall. He had commanded Council forces for 5 centuries. He had never lost an engagement. High Arbiter. Threxus's voice rumbled like grinding mountains. I have reviewed the available intelligence on human military capabilities. I recommend we proceed with extreme caution. The Council has voted, Morlax said quickly. You have your orders. Crush human resistance and enforce the mandate. Threxus turned his rocky gaze toward Morlax. With respect, Representative, I do not take orders from you. I take orders from the High Arbiter and the Military Council, and I am telling you all that this will not be a simple operation, explained Velinus commanded. The humans have advantages we typically do not face, Threxus began. First, unified command. All human forces answer to one chain of command. Our defense fleet has 200 different species with 200 different military traditions. Coordination will be challenging. We have trained together, Morlax protested. We have conducted exercises, Threxus corrected. That is not the same as fighting a real war. Second, the humans have recent combat experience. Their forces fought the Thalrex. They learned lessons. They adapted. Most of our fleet has not seen real combat in generations. Out. What else? Velinus asked. Technology. The humans have weapons we have not seen before. In their border conflict, they used directed plasma weapons that cut through Thalrex shields like they were not there. They used stealth systems that our sensors did not detect. They may have more surprises. Are you suggesting we cannot win? Morlax demanded. I am suggesting the cost will be high, Threxus replied. Very high. And I am not certain of victory. The humans chose their ground. They have had time to prepare. They know we are coming. Every advantage of surprise belongs to them. The chamber fell quiet. War Master Threxus did not speak carelessly. If he expressed doubt, there was reason for it. How long to mobilize the fleet? Velinus asked. 2 standard weeks. Ships are coming from across the galaxy. We need time to organize, to coordinate, to establish command protocols. Do it, Velinus ordered. But proceed carefully. Our goal is compliance, not extermination. If the humans can be convinced to negotiate, we will accept that. Understood, Threxus said. His hologram vanished. Kilvin stood slowly. Hi, Arbiter. I wish to make a formal statement for the record. Proceed. This council was formed to prevent war, to create a system where disputes could be resolved peacefully. Today we have voted to start a war over territorial redistribution. We are attacking a species that has not threatened any of us, that has not broken any treaties they agreed to, that has simply refused to give up their own systems. History will judge us harshly for this. History will record that we maintained order, Morlax countered, that we did not allow chaos to replace law. History will record that we started a war we did not need to fight, Kilvin replied, and that we may have lost everything because of our pride. She walked out of the chamber. Several other representatives followed her. Within minutes, 23 species had withdrawn their representatives from the council. Not many, but enough to notice. Enough to show that the council's unity was cracking. Velinus dismissed the session. Alone in his private chamber afterward, he accessed secure communications. He needed to speak with Ambassador Dayun one more time. Perhaps there was still a way to avoid this. The communication connected. Dayun appeared on screen. Behind him, Velinus could see other humans working at computer stations. The ambassador was not alone. Hi, Arbiter, Dayun said politely. I assume you were calling to inform me of the vote. You knew we would vote for military action, of course. Your pride would not allow any other choice. Dayun's voice held no mockery, just simple statement of fact. There is still time to reconsider, Velinus said. You could agree to negotiate. Perhaps a smaller number of systems. Perhaps some other arrangement. Blood does not need to be spilled. You are correct, Dayun agreed. Blood does not need to be spilled. You could withdraw your mandate. You could acknowledge that humanity has the right to govern itself. That would end this immediately. Council cannot simply back down. It would destroy our authority. Your authority is an illusion, Dayun said calmly. It exists only because species have agreed to recognize it. We do not agree. We will never agree. You can either accept that, or you can try to force us. But I warn you, High Arbiter, the cost will be more than you imagine. We have 5,000 warships. Yes, you have mentioned that number several times. You seem to find it reassuring. Dayun leaned forward slightly. Let me tell you something about humans. When we decided to reach the stars, everyone said it was impossible. The physics were too difficult, the costs too high, the risks too great. We did it anyway. When we encountered hostile aliens in our early exploration, everyone said we should retreat to our home system and hide. We fought instead. We won. When people tell us something cannot be done, we tend to do it out of spite. That is irrational. Perhaps, but it is human. We do not calculate odds the way you do. We do not surrender because the numbers look bad. We fight until we win, or until there is nothing left to fight with. Is that the war you want, High Arbiter? Because that is the war you will get. Velinus felt very old suddenly, very tired. I do not want any war. Then stop it, Dayun said simply. Withdraw the mandate. Leave us alone. That is all we ask. All we have ever asked. But cannot. The vote has been cast. Then we have nothing more to discuss. Dayun reached to end the connection, then paused. High Arbiter, one more thing. When your fleet arrives at the staging point, my colleague Admiral Minseo will be waiting. She asked me to tell you something. She said you should remember that mercy is a choice. We can choose to show it, or we can choose not to. The choice we make will depend on the choice you make. Choose wisely. The connection ended. Velinus sat in darkness, considering those words. Mercy is a choice. The humans were telling him they could show restraint, or they could show none. The decision was his, but the vote was cast. The fleet was mobilizing. In 2 weeks, the Council and humanity would meet in battle. and Velinus suspected that nothing would ever be the same afterward. In the darkness, he prayed to gods he no longer believed and that War Master Threxus was wrong, that the cost would not be as high as feared, that somehow this would end without destroying everything they had built. But he did not believe his own prayers. The Kepler 442 system hung in neutral space, far from any claimed territory. It was chosen specifically because no one cared about it. 3 barren planets orbited a yellow star, no resources worth fighting over, no strategic value, just empty space where a fleet could gather without threatening anyone. War Master Threxus stood on the bridge of the battlecruiser Eternal Valor. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of all 5,000 ships under his command. 200 different species, hundreds of different ship designs. It had taken 3 weeks to organize them, longer than planned. Getting everyone to agree on basic tactical doctrine had been difficult. All ships are in position, his tactical officer reported. A floating jellyfish-like being named Kelrix. Formation is stable. No signs of human forces. They will come, Threxus said. His stone body was still, but his mind raced. Something felt wrong. The humans should have contested their approach, should have tried to stop the fleet from gathering. But there had been nothing, just silence. Incoming transmission, Kelrix announced. Human ship approaching. Single vessel. Requesting communication. Show me. A sleek destroyer appeared on screen. It was moving slowly. No aggressive maneuvers. The ship's profile matched human design, heavily armed but not massive. A negotiating ship, perhaps. High Arbiter Velinus is monitoring this channel, Kelrix noted. He requested to observe. Open communications, Threxus ordered. The display shifted to show a human woman in military uniform. Threxus recognized her immediately from the intelligence files. Admiral Minseo, the officer who had destroyed a Thalrex fleet with only 5 ships. Her face was calm, almost pleasant. War Master Threxus, she said politely. Thank you for accepting communication. I am Admiral Minseo. I command the human forces in this sector, Admiral Threxus replied. Have you come to negotiate your surrender? No, Minseo said with a slight smile. I have come to prevent unnecessary bloodshed. You have assembled an impressive fleet. 5,000 warships. Such a force could devastate many civilizations. It is not my wish to devastate humanity, Threxus said carefully. The Council seeks only compliance with its mandate. If humanity agrees to negotiate, this fleet will disperse peacefully. It will not happen, Minseo replied. But I appreciate the sentiment. War Master, I have studied your career. You are a brilliant commander. You have fought in 12 major engagements and won them all. You value the lives of your soldiers. You do not waste them needlessly. This is true. Where are you going with this? I want to show you something, Minseo said. With your permission, I would like to conduct a brief demonstration. No one will be harmed. But I believe it will help you understand the situation more clearly, Threxus considered. A demonstration. What could one ship demonstrate against 5,000? Very well. Proceed. I am transmitting coordinates. I recommend your fleet maintain current position and observe. Minseo's image vanished. What are those coordinates? Threxus asked. Kelrix checked. Empty space, approximately 1 million kilometers from our position. No ships, no installations, nothing. Alert status. Watch those coordinates closely. The fleet waited. Threxus felt his unease growing. Something was about to happen. Something he was not prepared for. Then space began to fold. Energy signatures. Kelrix shouted. Multiple ships decloaking. Impossible readings. They were there the entire time, and we did not see them. The holographic display exploded with new contacts. 1 ship became 2. 2 became 10. 10 became 50. 50 became 100. The numbers kept climbing. How many? Threxus demanded. Still counting. 170. 190. 200 ships. All human designs. War Master, they were in stealth mode. Our sensors never detected them. They have been here since before we arrived. 200 human warships hung in perfect formation. They were massive, each one larger than most Council battleships. Their weapons were already charged. Their shields were already active. They had appeared in the span of seconds, all at once, in perfect coordination. Mincio's voice came over the communication channel again, broadcasting to every ship in both fleets. What you are seeing is a fraction of human military capacity. These ships have been positioned here for 3 weeks. We knew where you would gather. We knew when. We have been waiting. This is still only 200 ships against 5,000, Threxus said, though his voice lacked conviction now. It's true, Mincio agreed. But War Master, I want you to understand something. This is not a battle. This is a demonstration. I am going to show you what happens when humans decide to fight seriously. But I promise you, no one will die today. My orders are very specific. Disable, do not destroy. Watch carefully. Threxus opened his mouth to respond when his tactical officer screamed a warning. Incoming fire. All sectors. The human fleet opened fire simultaneously. 200 ships, thousands of weapons, but the fire was precise, surgical. They were not aiming to destroy. They were targeting specific systems. The first wave hit Council ships on the outer edges of the formation. Weapon systems exploded. Shield generators failed. Engine compartments were breached. But life support remained intact. Command centers were untouched. The humans were crippling ships without killing crews. Turn fire, Threxus ordered. All ships engage. The Council fleet responded. 5,000 ships launching weapons at 200 targets. It should have been overwhelming. It should have been decisive. But the human ships moved. They did not stay still and exchange fire like traditional fleet battles. They accelerated, dodged, weaved between incoming weapons. Their coordination was perfect. When one ship moved, all ships adjusted. They flowed like a school of fish, like a flock of birds, like a single organism with 200 bodies, and their weapons never missed. Every shot struck exactly where it was intended. Council ships were being disabled in sequence, methodically, efficiently, like a surgeon cutting away diseased tissue. They are using predictive algorithms, Kelrick shouted. They know where we will fire before we fire. They know our patterns. Of course they did. They had studied every Council species. They knew every weapon, every tactic, every doctrine. They had prepared for this exact battle. 5 minutes passed. The human fleet had not lost a single ship. The Council fleet had 300 vessels disabled. The humans were barely using their full firepower. They were demonstrating restraint even in combat. War Master, we cannot maintain this, Kelrick said quietly. At this rate, the entire fleet will be disabled in 30 minutes. We have not even scratched their shields. Threxus watched his beautiful formation falling apart. Ships drifting without power. Crews helpless but alive. The humans were proving a point. They could kill everyone here, but they were choosing not to. They were showing mercy to demonstrate their power. Cease fire, Threxus ordered. All ships cease fire immediately. The Council weapons fell silent. The human fleet stopped firing as well, instantly coordinated. They held position, weapons still charged, waiting. Mincio's face appeared on screen again. War Master Threxus, have you seen enough? You have made your point, Threxus said heavily. Good, now I will show you something else. Mincio gestured off screen. I am dispatching medical teams and engineering support to your disabled vessels. We will help repair critical systems and tend to any wounded. This is not a courtesy. This is policy. Human military doctrine requires us to provide aid to disabled enemies once combat has ceased. Why? Threxus asked. Why show mercy to those who came to attack you? Because we are not monsters, Mincio replied simply. Because the crews following your orders are just doing their duty. Because someday we may need to live beside you in peace. And that is easier if we do not slaughter you when we have the chance. We fight when we must. We show mercy when we can. That is what makes us human. Human ships were already moving toward the disabled council vessels. Threxus watched in disbelief as they provided assistance. Engineering teams, medical supplies, even spare parts for repairs. Footage is being transmitted to every council world, Minseo continued. Every species will see what happened here. They will see that we could have killed everyone, that we chose not to, that we are reasonable people who prefer peace. But they will also see what happens when we are forced to fight. The council will not forget this humiliation, Threxus said. I hope they do not, Minseo replied. I hope they remember it every time they consider forcing another species to surrender their sovereignty. I hope they remember that power used unwisely creates enemies. Power used with restraint creates respect. We could be your enemies, War Master. Or we could be your friends. The choice has always been yours. The communication ended. Threxus stood among the wreckage of his fleet, ships drifting, pride broken. But his crews were alive. The humans had kept their promise. Not one person had died. He opened a channel to the High Arbiter. Velinus appeared, his face unreadable, you saw. Threxus asked the entire council saw. Velinus replied quietly. It is being broadcast everywhere. What are your orders? There was a long pause. Then Velinus spoke, and his voice was that of someone who had finally accepted reality. Return home. The operation is cancelled. We will not enforce the mandate. The council will agree. They have no choice. Morlax is already demanding we mobilize more forces, but even he saw what happened. 1 month had passed since the demonstration at Kepler 2442. The council chamber was different now, quieter, less certain of itself. Representatives sat in their designated areas, but the atmosphere had changed. The old confidence was gone, replaced by something more cautious. More humble, High Arbiter Velinus stood at his podium. His forearms no longer spread wide in gestures of absolute authority. He looked tired. The past month had aged him in ways that centuries of comfortable rule had not. The council recognizes Ambassador Dayun of humanity, Velinus announced. Dayun walked down the crystal approach, just as he had a month ago. But this time, the chamber did not look at him with contempt or dismissal. They looked at him with respect. And some, with fear. Morlax was absent. His species had recalled him after the demonstration. He had been too vocal in demanding war, too eager for conflict. His people did not forgive him for nearly starting a war they would have lost. High Arbiter, Dayon said when he reached the center. Thank you for this session. I know it was not easy to convene. The council owes humanity acknowledgement, Velinus replied formally. We issued a mandate without understanding the situation. We threatened military action without considering the consequences. We were wrong. A murmur ran through the chamber. Those words, we were wrong, had never been spoken in council history. Not in 40,000 years. We appreciate that acknowledgement, Dayon said. But appreciation is not why I am here. I am here to propose changes to how the council operates. Changes that will benefit everyone. What changes? Kilvin asked. She'd returned to the council after the demonstration. Several species that had withdrawn had also returned. The council was formed to prevent war and promote cooperation, Dayon began. Noble goals. But over time, it became something else. It became a governing body that imposed its will through force. That is not cooperation. That is tyranny with a polite name. Strong words, Velinus said, but he did not argue. Accurate words, Dayon corrected gently. So humanity proposes this. The council should remain as a forum for discussion and cooperation, but it should not have the authority to force compliance. Species maintain full sovereignty over their own territories. Mandates become suggestions. Laws become guidelines. Participation becomes voluntary. That is chaos, a representative from the Corvin species objected. Without authority, the council has no power. Species will do whatever they want. Yes, Dayon agreed. They will exercise their freedom. Some will make good choices. Some will make bad ones. But they will be free to make those choices. Is that not better than forced compliance? What about species that abuse their freedom? that attack their neighbors, that commit atrocities, then other species respond, Dayon said. Not because the Council orders it, but because it is right. Voluntary coalitions, defensive alliances, free cooperation between species who choose to work together. That is real strength. Forced unity is fragile. It shatters when tested. We all saw that at Kepler 442. The chamber fell silent. They had seen it. 5,000 ships from 200 species, unable to coordinate effectively, unable to stand against a unified force, a fraction of their size. Humanity offers more than just a new system, Dayon continued. We offer partnership. Fleet Admiral Jiwan has proposed joint patrol routes. Human ships working alongside Council vessels to eliminate piracy and trade lanes. No authority over each other, just cooperation for mutual benefit. A hologram activated showing Jiwan on a ship bridge. Beside her stood several alien military officers, all working together at control stations. We have already begun trial programs, Jiwan said. Human and Corvin ships patrolling together. Human and Velis forces protecting mining operations. The early results are excellent. Piracy has dropped 40% in patrolled sectors. What about military training? Asked Representative Thyra. Will humans share their tactical knowledge? We will, Jiwan confirmed. Any species that wants to participate in joint exercises is welcome. We will teach what we know. Learn from others. Improve together. But participation is voluntary. We will not force our methods on anyone. Another hologram appeared. A human woman with kind eyes. I am Dr. Sora, she introduced herself. I lead human xenobiological research. We are prepared to share medical advances with any species who wants them. No cost, no strings attached. We have developed treatments for 17 different alien diseases in the past decade. That research is available to all. Why? Someone asked. Why share this freely? Because sick people cannot trade, cannot work, cannot live in peace, Dr. Sora replied simply. Healthy populations are stable populations. Stable populations do not start wars out of desperation. It benefits everyone. More holograms appeared. Human engineers offering to help species develop better infrastructure. Human scientists proposing joint research projects. Human merchants establishing fair trade agreements. Everything voluntary. Everything offered freely. This is all very generous, Velena said carefully. But what does humanity gain from this? Peace, Dayon replied. We gain neighbors who prosper instead of suffering. We gain trade partners instead of resentful subjects. We gain friends instead of enemies. That is worth more than any mandate could ever give us. And if species refuse your help, if they remain hostile, then they remain sovereign in their space, and we remain sovereign in ours. We will defend ourselves if attacked. We will not tolerate aggression against our territory, but we will not seek conflict. We have proven we can win wars. Now we want to prove we can win peace. Kelvin stood slowly. I support this proposal. The old system failed. We saw that clearly. Perhaps it is time to try something new. Something based on choice rather than coercion. Also support it, Thyra added. My species has already benefited from human cooperation. Our trade routes are safer. Our merchants prosper. This is what the Council should have been from the beginning. One by one, representatives voiced their support. Not all of them. Some species still clung to the old ways. But enough. More than enough. Velinus looked around the chamber. He saw the future forming before his eyes. The Council would continue, but as something different. Something better, perhaps. Very well, he said finally. I call for a vote. All in favor of restructuring the Council along the lines humanity has proposed? Lights appeared across the chamber. Velinus counted. 642 species in favor. Less than 200 opposed. The rest abstained, waiting to see how things developed. The measure passes, Velinus announced. The Council will be restructured. All existing mandates are hereby rescinded. All species maintain full sovereignty. The Council will serve as a forum for cooperation, not a governing body. The chamber erupted, but this time in relief rather than anger. Species that had feared council overreach for centuries were suddenly free. Species that had been forced into compliance could now choose their own paths. Dayon bowed slightly. Thank you, High Arbiter. Humanity looks forward to working with the Council in this new era. Ambassador, Velenus said quietly, may I ask you something personally? Of course, did you plan all of this? The refusal, the demonstration, this restructuring? Dayon smiled. We hoped for this outcome, but we were prepared for others. If the Council had withdrawn the mandate immediately, we would have been satisfied. If the Council had chosen total war, we would have fought. We did not want to reshape the galaxy. We wanted freedom. But when you forced the issue, we saw an opportunity to make things better for everyone. So yes, we planned for this possibility. We hoped it would come to this. You are a dangerous species, Velenus said, but there was respect in his voice. Dangerous because you think ahead, because you are patient, because you know when to fight and when to build. We learn from experience, Dayon replied. Our history taught us that you cannot force people to be free, but you can create conditions where freedom flourishes. That is what we tried to do here. You succeeded, Kilvin said, joining the conversation. I have reviewed the proposals in detail. They are fair. More than fair. You could have demanded much more after your demonstration. We do not want to rule others, Dayon said. We want to live beside them in peace. That was always our goal. 6 months later, the transformation was clear. Human merchant ships traveled freely through Council space. Joint military patrols had reduced piracy by 60%. Medical teams from human vessels were helping fight disease outbreaks on a dozen different worlds. Engineering corps were building infrastructure on underdeveloped planets. Trade between humanity and other species had tripled. Technology was being shared both ways. Human innovations in weapons and stealth. Alien advances in faster-than-light travel and energy generation. Everyone benefiting from cooperation, Dayon stood on Earth in the human Senate chamber. Senators from 200 human worlds gathered to receive his report. The galaxy has changed, Dayon told them. 6 months ago, we were threatened with war. Today, we have more allies than we can count. Species that feared us now work beside us. The council that demanded our submission now asks for our advice. Nothing lasts forever, Dayon admitted. But we have created a system based on choice. As long as species benefit from cooperation, they will choose to cooperate. If that changes, we adapt. That is the human way.